Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Jessie if you are new here, and this is
Ben,
my husband Ben. So today we're going to talk about some of our goals for 2024. We're going to go through like our family type goals, some of our personal goals, and then there's also some of our financial goals in there as well. So if you're interested in that stuff, I will have timestamps in the description, or you can probably see them on your screen so that you can jump to certain sections if they're more interesting to you than others. But yeah, so I have Ben here with me because obviously we made these goals together. I am still planning on doing a vision board at some point, or at least starting that. So if you guys are interested, maybe I'll show you what that looks like in a different video. He and I went to a coffee shop a couple weeks ago. I guess it was like a week ago. I don't even know time. We went
a couple days after Christmas.
Yeah, we went a couple days after Christmas and just went through all of this stuff. So do you want to tell them what the pillars are that we're going to be talking about? He
Sure.
has this all on his phone, so he kind of has it organized that way.
So the pillars are health and well-being, relationships and connection, vocation and income, and lifestyle and legacy.
Yeah, so those are the specific pillars that we're talking about, and then we kind of go into them. I would say the two biggest ones for me, health and well-being is a huge one because that's kind of where all of my goals are focused on. I know a lot of Ben's are as well. And then our financial goals are always really important to both of us. So we'll jump into this right away. Again, click over to whichever section that you're interested in or watch it all and you'll know everything about us. But again, we're doing this on baby nap time, so let's get going. Okay, so one of the first questions we had in this area that we, like the things we wanted to focus on were what are our individual areas of focus? What is the time, energy, financial commitment of that? What do we need to do to make this happen? So that was kind of the question leading into our health and well-being section. So I'll talk about mine a little bit and then Ben can talk about his. So for these, the first one that I talk about is improving relationship with food and body. The biggest thing that I'm doing for this, which I mentioned in a vlog, is that I joined a food freedom online group program. It doesn't technically start until February, but there's a couple of calls in January. I think they start next week or the week after. So I'm excited about that. I had done this Jessie person, I can put her information in the description box, but I had done her like 23-day program or something like that, and it was just very resonant for me. It's a lot about like binge eating, emotional overeating, and learning how to intuitively eat again with having a background in those areas, which I think is not usually what intuitive eaters or people who are teaching intuitive eating are focusing on. So I think that I really enjoyed her way of coming at it. So that's a big one for me. It's something that I really want to feel safer and more comfortable in those areas. The next one is physical health. So physically working out, things like that. The biggest thing for me is I really wanted to start doing Pilates, specifically reformer Pilates, which is unfortunately another expense. So we kind of talked through, am I going to do like a Pilates studio and then work out from home? Am I going to keep my lifetime membership and do the Pilates there? So we kind of went back and forth. Currently, I'm gonna stay at Lifetime and try that out, but I might switch out of that and start going to the Pilates studio. It's a little bit further away, but it's not terrible. Yeah. So we're just trying to figure out what makes sense there. I don't want to only be going to Lifetime only for Pilates. That wouldn't make sense because it's two different memberships that I'm paying for. And then I really want to start walking more. So unfortunately it's like freezing here, so that's part of the reason why I'm keeping the Lifetime membership. And then doing workouts. I bought Kelly Yeager's program again, so whether I'm doing that from home or at Lifetime, that's important to me. The next piece within physical health is stomach, skin, thyroid, inflammation, liver issues. So basically all of my health issues. I have Hashimoto's, if you didn't know. I also have a ton of skin issues that I don't really talk about that often, and then I was having a lot of stomach issues. We really want to focus on like going to the doctor, possibly finding a new doctor that can help me. I actually already did switch my medication back to Armour a couple days ago, so I'm currently going through the this swing of switching a medication right now. The other thing that I put is that I just want to feel healthier all around and like have energy, feel like I can keep up with Ivy, because currently I do not feel that way. I'm very stuffed up, so don't mind that. The next two, there's two other ones within this whole like health and well-being for me. First one is healing around trauma. There's just a lot of stuff in my background, but then there's also my birth trauma, which is something that I have really been struggling with this past year with Ivy, and with her first birthday just coming up. It's really, really bubbled up for me. So I'm working with a previous therapist that I used to work with here, who I really love. She does internal family systems work, which is like parts work, helping me try to work through some of that. And then the food freedom program is another piece of that is within the like healing category. I would also put acupuncture in this list. Yeah. That's something that's been really helpful for my overall anxiety in general, and I usually do that about 2 days a week. And then we have somatic work here. 2 days a month.
No, that'd be great. But.
Yeah. Somatic work, something that Ben really, and I want to do too, but he really thinks would be beneficial for me to start working with a practitioner that actually does only somatic work, but that'll probably be in like a couple of months. We're going to focus on the stuff I'm doing right now first. And then the last piece of this for me is community. So I'm currently in a little online group, so I want to engage in that more. Otherwise I need to get out of it because I'm currently just paying for it. I talked about doing more stuff with my sister-in-law, Elizabeth, finding new friends and reconnecting with older friends, like previous friends, and trying to find like local things that I can do, whether that's going to mommy-daughter things with Ivy, going to the library, joining, you know, a Pilates studio, or maybe like making friends that way. So something that's really important to me this year is community. This was a big section for me, and I didn't even really go like deeply into it. So if you guys want a separate video for me to just like go through a lot of my health and well-being and where I'm feeling, where I'm at right now, just leave a comment down below and I'll do that in a different video. But now we'll move on to Ben's and he can talk about his.
My high-level comment was just that Jesse's health and well-being is really important to us this year. That's also why it felt important for us to do kind of a goal-setting thing and planning together, because I think it's important in a partnership and a family to weigh who's the priority, if there is one person, or what is the priority. And in this case,
yeah, because
this is both
50-50.
Right, and this is both the who and the what. Like, who is Jesse, the what is health and well-being. If you guys have been around, you know that we had to kind of like put the brakes on some stuff last year to slow things down, to focus on my health and well-being. We did that, and we did what was necessary there. I'm in a much better place now and still working on stuff, on a good trajectory with that, whereas now it's like, okay, now let's like move the focus off of me a little bit. Let's put it on Jesse. There's just all these things that you mentioned, just kind of like lingering things, new things. All this stuff has just kind of come to a point where it's like, we need to attack this from a few different angles. And so that's, you know, with everything that she went over, which, by the way, I don't know if I like poked my eye or something in my sleep last night, but if it looks like I'm like on and off crying throughout this video, I am emotionally connected to all these things, but that's not the issue. The other thing is like my nose is running because of that, so
yeah, we're both
excuse me if I'm like wiping my eyes or my nose. For me, it's really just kind of a continuation of where I left from last year. Nervous system health is the most important thing to me, working on trauma, and I've been seeing a somatic therapist, working with a somatic therapist for a handful of months now. That has been life-changing. Gonna keep doing that. So really no new stuff for me, just kind of continuing, maybe starting to look into a couple other things health-wise, but we'll kind of see. No real big things. The only other thing for me is just physical health, starting to move more, especially in winter here. I do want to have kind of like a regular daily routine. I actually, on the flip side from Jesse, because even when you mentioned it, I kind of like want to start walking outside, and even if it is cold, I need fresh air. Like, I need to be outside, and like
yeah, but not when it's 10 degrees with a wind chill.
Yeah, But
Ivy can't go out in that at least.
No. But yeah, so movement basically is like the focus for me there.
And he sits in his office all day. So like he's moving less than me. And I'm not moving that much, but I'm at least running around with Ivy.
Yeah, I take Ivy out a couple times a day, like morning, lunchtime, evening, play buddy after work. I gotta get my energy out too. All right, I'll move us into the next one then. What are our focuses as a family and how will we implement those? So this question is just to kind of like bring it together, make it a little bit more holistic.
Also to involve Ivy because they were both mostly focused around us.
Yes. Yeah, just a family goal as opposed to individual goals. Getting out of the house is the big thing. Obviously, again, if you've been around, that was a struggle second half of last year. So doing so as a family, specifically getting out into nature. Ivy's not fully mobile on her own yet, but it'll be really cool as we move through the year and she can actually, be outside moving around on her own and things like that.
Yeah, I mean, we also talked about, as in getting out of the house, like going places. Yeah. So like nature is very important to both of us, but very important to Ben. Going places and like traveling is very important to me. And that's just something financially we haven't been able to do. And then health also tied into that in the last few years, but it started out as a financial issue. So we even just talked about like short weekend trips. So again, we're in the Chicagoland area, even going places like to Madison, Door County in Wisconsin, going to Michigan. There's a cute town, St. Geneva.
St. Geneva?
St. Charles and Geneva is like a really cute area that we've been to once this summer that we would like to go to a little bit more. We could even go into the city at some point when we're like feeling really good. So just some areas that we could do like that. And then just like mommy-daughter activities in general for me to get out of the house with Ivy during the week, during the day. And then the last piece about this focuses as a family is healthy meals for Ivy. So this is something that we're struggling with. I'm not gonna lie.
As first-time parents, it's just like a very new situation. Milk is easy.
Yeah, and we've been feeding her a lot of like pre-made stuff, like packaged purees, things like that. Giving her like pieces of whole fruit or things like that we have, but we haven't, because Ben and I don't eat the same things. We're just like not good at knowing how to feed her too. So we just want to get better at that and making sure that we have things prepped for her so that we're not struggling when we get to mealtime. That was probably one of the biggest sections that we're going to talk about here. So just because I know we're long,
don't think that every section will be that.
This was literally our like longest section. Okay, next we'll move on to relationships and connection, our next big pillar.
First question is, what do we want to focus on relationally? Do we want to continue couples therapy? How often?
So for this, we talked about the two things being intentional connection and therapy. So within that, we talked about having more regular date nights. This is something that I think is important to both of us, but it's more important to me. It's something that I really want, not only because I'm an extrovert. I like to get out of the house. I want to go places. I like trying new things. So does Ben. I'm just more apt to be the one to ask to do those kinds of things. So we want to do date nights and we want to do coffee dates. So our idea was to schedule for now one of each month. The coffee date would be going to a coffee shop like we did, going over our budget for the next month, how our budget is going for the current month, just anything else that we want to check in on, what are some big things coming up this next month. And then the date night would be actually just like a date night without Ivy, most likely. Those are the two areas that we really want to focus on.
Yeah, and I'm just gonna quickly say, like, the idea there being one of each per month as a, like, this is scheduled, this is a hard date in the calendar. Right. And if we have another one or two of those or whatever, then that's great. But we're not like limiting, we're not limiting ourselves to that, but it was just like, these are are going to be like written in stone kind of thing. Another
thing within this is our daily check-ins, focusing on intentionally sitting down with each other for a few minutes and asking about each other's day. We want to focus on trying to do this at least 4 days a week, which we did not do this week. So we need to get on that. The second piece on this one is therapy. Like I said, I think our plan on this one is to move towards doing this monthly versus We were initially doing it weekly, then we moved to every other week, and now I think we're going to try to move to monthly, and then we'll see if we continue to feel like we need an actual like therapy session, or if we can kind of go through things on our own.
We got the support we needed when things felt hard. We've always been good at communicating. We feel like we're in a pretty good spot with that, and like we know what we need to do. Now it's just a matter of executing, like we talked about. Another question we had here was, how can we start making connections in the local community? This is something we did not do well in Raleigh. Part of that was COVID initially. Then after that, we just kind of struggled with it and we're lazy with it. And you know, our situation's the same. Like we're working from home. We have, you know, my family is very close. Location, yeah. So it's easy to default to like hanging out with my sister who lives at home or things like that. We just need to be intentional about doing this.
I think another thing we had talked about looking into like library or park district groups, which I kind of mentioned a little bit earlier, like a way to try to meet people. Again, Ben and I don't like drink really. We don't, you know, so we're not really gonna do like the bar scene or things. Plus I just don't feel like people, maybe they are, but I don't feel like people in their like mid to late 30s are really doing that as much, like finding friends that late. At least they might still be going out and having a good time. So we want to do that, and that might be a helpful way to like find family friends, other moms or dads that are going to those types of things. Also want to do some mommy-daughter groups, which is kind of connected with that. One thing for me in this area is I've noticed that I'm really resisting wanting to get connections in the area because I'm not sure that I want to stay here. However, I did that a little bit in Raleigh too. My brain can kind of just start to disconnect when it feels stuck or like I'm going to get too tied to an area. I've always been like this, which is why I don't have very many lasting friendships, because I kind of slowly disconnect because it's easier for me. Another thing I need to work on in therapy. This is just something that we both want to notice when we're resisting doing something because we don't know if we want to stay here or we don't want to get too tied to someone or something like that. Like even if we're only here for another year or we're here for 10 more years, it's still worth trying to make some connections so the time that we are here, we aren't so alone, I guess. Yeah. Is kind of a big one. Kind of intertwined with that one is also just like the online space. Obviously, you can find friends and family via online space as well. Ben and I found each other via Instagram. We've both made some pretty close connections online. So another way that we want to do that for me, I'm in Amy Young's community. So that's the community I'm still trying to decide if I'm going to stay in long term or not. But I do need to interact with that a little bit more. The Food Freedom community that I'm doing that online group program, and then you guys, my YouTube channel. So YouTube, my social media, I really love getting to chat with you guys in the comments, and connecting with other people who are doing YouTube is something I would like to do as well. So that's just something that I would really like to focus on, is the online community stuff as well.
For me, I had joined a community at the end of the year with Marina, who, I don't know, we probably tag her or something.
Yeah,
some way to put her in her. But her community is called Heart Space. She's a somatic practitioner and coach.
Really good at what she does.
Yeah, absolutely wonderful at what she does. This was something she started at the end of last year, and it's kind of perfect for me with where I was at. I'm wanting to have that support in a community environment. So being able to have like one-on-one support in a different container, but then like the community was a great way to have kind of a holistic support and healing community around this. So basically just continue with that.
Okay, the next section is vocation and income. So this is kind of like budgeting stuff, like where we're at with all this stuff. So we asked ourselves things like, where do we need to be more intentional or disciplined? How are we going to save, pay off loans? What does that look like for this year? Are we focusing on savings? Are we focusing on paying off student loans? We talked about some big ticket items that we had coming up for us, and then any goals that we had, things we want to work on, or passion projects, stuff like that. So that's all within this vocation and income one. So we'll start with, let's see, why don't we start with, are we planning to focus on savings and paying off loans, and why? So I'll talk about this one because this is the one that like I'm the most passionate about, I feel like. But we did decide, which I kind of mentioned in my last December budget recap, so I will link that if you guys are interested and haven't seen it yet. But we did decide that we're going to focus on savings this year more so than paying off loans. Actually, one of you commented on something and really like got my brain stirring about this, and I think that you are right. And it was also something that Ben and I have talked about as well, which is we just don't feel super comfortable with the amount of savings that we have. As you guys saw, our dog tore her ACL. It wiped out half of our savings. Thankfully we had the savings, but we just want to get that number bigger so that, you know, if ever something happens with Ben's job, or my job actually is, you know, all over the place with it being freelance, so I never really know exactly what's going to happen. We just want to beef up that savings. Focusing on savings because of having, you know, a job that's like mine that's kind of up in the air with freelance. We have a source of income that will be going away at the end of the year. And then we also have a daughter, we have a dependent, and all those types of things are really important to make sure that our savings is in a really good place. So our focus is savings. Our goal every month is to try to stay around $300 a month towards savings. If we can do more than that, that is what we want to do, but we want to at least do $300 a month towards savings. And then we also talked about whenever something big comes in, like say Ben gets a bonus, or I get a YouTube sponsorship, or something like that comes in and we have additional money come in that we weren't anticipating. In that moment, Ben and I will sit down and decide, do we want to put this toward savings, or do we want to put this toward a debt, or do we want to put this toward a high income item that we have coming up? So those are the types of things that we'll have conversations around, but our every month focus will be on savings. Then the other thing that we talked about a little bit was, where do we need to be more intentional or disciplined? Do you want to talk about this a little bit?
Sure.
Even though I'm probably the one that needs to be a little bit more intentional.
Food. Surprise, surprise. Not for those of you that watch budget videos. This is basically just like all categories: getting food out, grocery shopping, ordering from places like Thrive Market,
Costco.
Yeah, so we have a handful of different ways that we get food. One of the big pieces of this was like actually going grocery shopping. A lot of our grocery shopping last year, second half of last year, was done via pickup from Whole Foods, just because of the pure convenience factor of it. Part of what we talked about was Jessie going grocery shopping more, and now that she's feeling more comfortable, confident being out of the house with Ivy, this is something that is possible, and hopefully something that there's like some level of enjoyment there. Like it's a, you know, something to do, you know, like you running errands, and the purpose behind that being actually being there and seeing things can just be like a little bit more intentional with the process, where sometimes it's easier to just be like scrolling through the app and like adding stuff to your cart there. We
also can go to places like Trader Joe's, which are substantially less money than Whole Foods. Or like if I want to go to Aldi, or I want to try a different grocery store around here, Whole Foods is great and we get a lot of good stuff from there. But I mean, if you've ever shopped at Whole Foods, it's just higher priced, and that's okay. But I think doing it every single week was heightening our grocery budget, which is already fairly high.
And the other thing was really, before making a purchase of food out, asking ourselves or yourself, and this, okay, you know, like, do I need this Starbucks? Was kind of something that Jessie brought up.
I will say part of that is just like preparation. It's really hard that we don't eat the same stuff. So he might have a bunch of food here, or prepared food or snacks, and I don't, and so it's just like being more prepared with groceries and food in general. Also for Ivy is really important for both of us to be doing. That kind of goes to everything, like being more intentional. I feel like during the Christmas time I got a little bit like quick to hit purchase on stuff, which was fine. We were anticipating that and we were okay with it. But I think that can continue to like snowball if you don't pay attention to it, especially for someone like me that does tend to have impulse tendencies with food and with purchasing clothing or other things, not necessarily clothing. I'm saying clothing because this was actually an impulse purchase that I'm very happy with. I love it a lot. Thinking through things and not just being like, oh wow, this shirt is almost 50% off, but then being like, right, but do I still need to spend? Or do I really actually want that? Or things like that. So just like making sure that that like impulse spending kind of slows back down and that I'm paying attention to what I'm spending. Ben doesn't really spend a lot. We've talked about this before. Like he doesn't spend, but then all of a sudden he'll make like a gigantic purchase. So that's something that we're hoping that these like monthly budgets will help, that he can think a little bit forward and be like, oh, next month I really want to buy this, or I really, you know, we have this coming up, so that hopefully we can be better at like budgeting for those types of things as well.
To zoom out, I think there was also a general spontaneous spending thing, impulse spending thing last year. And I want to mention this because, not to like call Jesse out, I mean, I do want to do that. And I think I mentioned this in another conversation, to speak to anybody that has gone through a situation with debt. If you go from having a really inability to spend on extraneous things, and then you do start to transition to being more financially comfortable and having more income, even if you could be putting that towards debt, or I think very natural and normal to just be happy about that and have the kind of like very human response to, oh, I can purchase that now, so I'm going to, when you've had this long period of restriction. I think that
it happens with food and dieting as well.
Yes, that's what I was thinking too. I think this was kind of like a grace period, is like the way that I see it and feel it. And so it's like,
as
okay.
Uber Eats literally just texts me on my watch.
You know, like that was okay for this year. Enjoy that. Don't be super strict because things have been hard, and like, you know, allow ourselves a little bit of freedom and wiggle room there. But I think that it's now time to kind of like tighten down rein it in a little bit, and not for the purpose of getting strict as much as like we can become more financially free if we are more disciplined with our money. And Jessie kind of talked about that when we had this conversation. She was like, just give me a goal, like give me something to focus on, give me a reason to not spend. Like it's just easier to be like, you know, oh well, I could just go get this Starbucks, or oh, I'm gonna make this, you know, hit this, you know, the purchase button on Amazon or whatever. But in that moment, to be able to pause and be like, oh, wait a second, I really want to put away $500 this month instead of the $350 or whatever we're at currently. I just want to add a little bit extra context there, because I know that a lot of you do follow along with the budgeting stuff and may be able to relate to kind of the debt journey. And I think it's just like a very real, normal, not shameful part of the process. Mm-hmm. So we did also have 2 questions about vocation or work. Do we have any important goals, objectives with work? And then the kind of follow-up was, what passion projects are we working on?
Yeah, so for me, currently the focus is to just stay consistent with the current client that I have and the current amount of work that I'm doing for them. And hopefully that continues super long term, because it's really, I'm really grateful for it. It's something that I can do on my own time. I enjoy doing it. It's very flexible because my focus is 100% on Ivy, and I like being able to focus on being a mom. So this is a way that I can bring in money, but I can do it on my own time, and it doesn't dig into too much of my time with Ivy. Another piece that kind of goes with it, because I do consider this work in like a good way, and it's something that I want to continue to treat as work, which is you guys, is my YouTube channel and social media in general, but specifically YouTube. It's something that I've been loving and passionate about. I started making YouTube videos in 2015, 14 maybe, on a different channel, went over here, and it's something that I just want to continue focusing on and hopefully growing, and hopefully like seeing like more traction and more people watching my videos and joining this community over here. So that's something that I really want to focus on as well. Just to tie in with that, one of my passion projects that I would like to start again is just writing in general. So I've always loved writing. I used to write songs. I've written poetry. I've written short stories. I wanted to write a book at different times in my life. For me, just getting back into writing in whatever capacity that means, whether that's journaling or doing one of those other things, I just want to get back into actually utilizing that part of my brain, which I guess I do utilize in my job. I write for a company, but writing more creatively when it comes to like the types of things that are rummaging around in my brain is something that I would like to do a little bit more.
Yep, and then for me, kind of the same deal with work is just kind of continue the way things are going. Very happy with what I'm doing and where I'm at. I made the transition back into this line of work coming up on 2 years ago. And so I'm still like, it's funny because I'm 35 and I'm still like early in my career in the sense of like how long I've been in this field. Yeah. So for me, it's just kind of like continue to do that, work those muscles, get strong with where I'm at. I do eventually want to potentially make the jump to management. For me, it's also like being intentional about building that skill set in just kind of like a slow but proactive way, and kind of starting to do a little bit more of that within the team, which I already kind of am and had conversations with my boss about that. Continuing with that, otherwise, just very grateful for where I'm at there and just want to continue with it. Passion project wise for me, so I had a business a couple years ago after leaving that and then getting back into a job and kind of getting used to that world again. And then we got pregnant. That was the whole thing. I became like, support was my main role. And then obviously with Ivy being born and learning to be a dad, then we moved. Then my health went to shit. Right. And I really struggled with some stuff. So it's been a long time since I really kind of was able to get back in touch with the things that I'm passionate about and
like creativity.
Expressing myself creatively. I've just always been somebody who wants to like make an impact and do meaningful work in a way that feels meaningful to me. Yeah, I'm like feeling back into that already and kind of knowing where I want to go with that. And so for me, it's just a matter of expressing myself creatively and continuing to do that through this year. Mm-hmm. Which I think kind of is a nice segue into our fourth and final pillar here, which is lifestyle and legacy. I'll just kind of mention the questions here because we don't have anything strictly written down, but like that's kind of okay for this category because it is much like bigger picture, zoomed out type of thing. What future are we building towards for ourselves, with each other? How can we romanticize our current life, even if it isn't our dream? How can we support one another in our personal goals for the year? So Benjamin wrote those questions down. We didn't really get to this section, but as he said, it's also an overarching thing that we want to like pay attention to. I think this romanticizing your current life thing has been coming up a lot for me and for Ben, and just like working on gratitude for what we have. Yeah. Focusing on all of these other pieces of our like family goals, I think will be helpful. And like gratitude is just always really impactful when it comes to romanticizing your life. You don't have to do all these like crazy things, take bubble baths every night to romanticize your life. But I think practicing gratitude, which will be like easier to do when we're doing things together, like date nights or doing things with Ivy or things like that we can like really practice our gratitude. I think for me, living in Raleigh, especially the first 2 years we were there before I got pregnant, I just felt that innately, like every day. Not every day, but a lot of days, just like driving around, I was just so grateful to be in the Raleigh area. It was so beautiful. We just don't get that as much here. So even just being grateful for things like our beautiful backyard or being able to go for a walk or whatever. So I think that's just something we want to focus on in this area. So I feel like these questions are kind of just things that we're going to continue to like mull over and try to focus on throughout the year. But I don't think we have any like strict goals within it quite yet. A vision question rather than a goal question. Like to me, goals are much like more rigid and something that you can take like super tangible steps towards, whereas like this you can definitely take tangible steps towards it, but it's just kind of like it's more of like a feeling that you're shooting for rather than like specifics. Like specifics can be part of it, but that's like a key to happiness in general. We're both kind of, I would say, like recovering achievers from the sense of like being so focused on where you're going that you aren't even really kind of being grateful for where, like slowing down enough to really look around and see and feel and experience what is like right here and the beauty that is right around you, because we are privileged. We do have a lot of amazing things about our life. To me, it's like, it's just a focus thing. It's like shifting focus from what we don't have and that lack, and shifting that and turning our attention towards what we do have, and that, you know, more like an abundance mindset. Just like feeling that, you know, I think it's one thing to like list it out on a piece of paper, and sometimes that can be helpful, but I think it's just like being really present in our day-to-day lives, experiencing it. We've kind of needed to take a break from big picture vision, because that was lending itself to the focus of what we didn't have.
Right.
We haven't talked about that as much, and I think that's been okay because we do kind of just need to take stock of what we have and where we're at. The path will kind of unfold. Like, I think the vision thing is important in conversations around what we care about, what matters to us, and the future that we want to build towards with each other is important. But I think we can also learn about that by experiencing it in little ways and kind of like weaving those things together.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to look at it. Like, even all of our other goals in a way are like focusing on getting more of something or fixing something, or even if it's well intentioned, I think that that's what all goals are. But I think this section is important to kind of like take a step back and be like, okay, but what feels good now, you know, how can we make it feel even better? And
then the one other thing I want to mention is, I think this is both easier and harder as a parent at the same time, depending on how well you're working that muscle. What I mean by that is that having a kid just allows you, it's easy to get caught up in the whirlwind of being a parent and feeling super busy and just days flying by. Having a kid is also, to me, like just a golden opportunity to learn more presence. She just, like, they just offer you that. And so I think, at least for me, and I've seen it in you too, is just like allowing her to bring us into a present moment and be with her and be with her experiences, and just like almost, you know, like let her lead in some ways. You know, I think, yeah, whatever. I'm not going to go into some rant about our culture, but just like letting her lead us and kind of like determine what's important for our family.
She's also still sleeping like a perfect day.
Yeah, I will find a way to lengthen this. How can we support one another? I think that's an important question to ask. I really like that question. I wrote all these questions.
Right. Which is why Benjamin likes them.
Yeah. I'm really good at this. This is like something
I'm gonna cut this all out.
Something I loved with coaching was creating journal prompts. It's just, I think I just have a knack for it. It's really meaningful. Like, it's really meaningful to be able to ask good questions. So what I was gonna say, this is not about me, this is about you. If you want these questions, Jesse, I will give them all to Jesse. And so yeah, take them and use them. Asking yourself stuff like this is just super important. So how do we support each other? We already kind of talked about that. I just think that's like a really, really important question to ask. And I think we'll continue to come back to that in our monthly check-ins.
Okay, I think that's it for this video, just because I know it's super long. I hope that you guys enjoyed hearing us kind of chat through our goals. I didn't have like a super structured outline with this video, but sometimes it's interesting, hopefully, to just listen to people talk about things. Otherwise, you're not even hearing this ending. As we were talking about this, I do think I'm gonna do a video maybe showing like vision boards, or a little bit more like focused structure on the health and wellness stuff, specifically for me, because I do know that some of you guys are following because of that and want to know more about like my health and Hashimoto's and all that stuff. So maybe that could be an interesting second part to this video. I can put all these questions in the description so that you guys can use some or all of them for your own goals if you would like. And yeah, I hope you enjoyed learning a little bit more about what we're focusing on this year. We're so grateful that you're here with us. So we will see you, or I will see you in the next video. Bye.